This One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
First tonight, we've comprehensive coverage of an explosive volcano.
Mount Tongariro has erupted for the second time in just over 3 months. Let's set the scene. Again, it occurred from the upper Te Mare crater around 1:25. It lasted for less than 5 minutes. The latest from GNS Science is that the eruption appears to be over, but a volcanic alert remains. We have reaction tonight from people on the mountain, including groups of school children. But first we go to Daniel Faitaua, who's at the entrance to the Tongariro crossing. Daniel.
Well, that's right, Simon. Eyewitnesses we spoke to say the eruption lasted around 2 minutes, and they described the smoke plume as surreal, that they fled shortly after seeing it. History repeats. Just 3 months after Te Mare crater on the western side of Mount Tongariro erupted, it does it again. Sam Kennedy and Dave Insole were on the Tongariro crossing track.
We were talking about how scared we were, but everyone's in the same boat, and we had some awesome guides with us. And
it was completely silent. It was eerie and surreal. It was just this large column of smoke.
Department of Conservation staff are confident they'll get everyone off the track, and no one has been harmed. GeoNet scientists confirm the eruption that occurred at 1:25 was completely unexpected. They can't rule out that it's linked to recent activity on Mount Ruapehu.
We were not expecting, everything was going down, and it's like, well, no, the stuff at Ruapehu is, and there's no link, but maybe there is. Maybe we just don't understand it well enough.
The last eruption here was in August. GNS Science says this time it's much smaller.
It was actually relatively small because it only went up to 2 or 3 kilometres. Large eruptions might go up to 20, 30, even 40 kilometres and be sustained for hours, whereas this only went on for 5 minutes. Volcanologists can't predict whether more eruptions will follow. We may see several more rumbles over the next few days, but because there was nothing happened before this one that told us it was coming, it's very hard to look forward and say, oh, we've seen this, therefore there must be another eruption.
Some passenger flights over the central plateau area have been cancelled. Civil Aviation are monitoring the ash cloud and talking to airlines.
The eruption has extended to about 15,000 feet, and that the plume will spread out over the central plateau of New Zealand over the next 12 hours or so. The plume will then probably dissipate.
Civil Defence has issued a warning the ash cloud from this unpredictable giant could be looming over the central North Island from Waikato to Hawke's Bay for several days.
Daniel, let's look to the immediate future. There is a big sporting event around Lake Taupo this Saturday, the cycle race. What effect will the eruption have on that?
Well, that's right. The Contact Lake Taupo Cycle Challenge is happening this weekend, as you mentioned. Now, around 8,200 participants will take part in that, and it's a cycle around 160 k's around Lake Taupo. Now, I can tell you that event will continue. However, authorities do say that over the next couple of days, they will be monitoring the situation.
Thank you, Daniel. Daniel Faitaua at the Tongariro Alpine Crossing.
This One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ. One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
A number of people were up the mountain when it exploded. Here's a selection of what they've witnessed.
We were just doing a normal crossing, coming across. Had 4 clients with me, and we were just in the middle of telling them how Ruapehu was on a bit of a high alert and pointing out some of the ballistics that were on the ground. And then before we knew it, Te Mare, the crater that erupted 3 months ago, just went off right there in front of us.
It was, you could hear a really loud eruption, and then, a ton of smoke went up, and what I felt, it's not like the end of the world. It's the first time I'm in New Zealand, but, I felt a lot of adrenaline rushing in, and it was just like an incredible sight.
There was a loud noise. We were already looking in that direction. Suddenly a black plume shot out very rapidly, followed by then like a grey cloud that shot up into the air. We were looking for giant boulders to fall on us, so we were looking at that pretty intently, but it seemed like it was just a cloud that was going.
This One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ. One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
Initially, there were fears for dozens of school children and trampers. Everyone's now been accounted for, but not before some anxious moments. With details, let's go to Ruth Wynne Williams.
Simon, as you said, nobody was hurt when the mountain suddenly spat itself back into life, but AmCam footage One News has been given from the top of the mountain shows just how powerful that eruption truly was, all while hundreds of trampers, including school children, were standing dangerously close. This was the moment a school outing turned to terror.
Oh my goodness. Poor people. There's some people on track and they're running.
100 students and teachers from Napier's Tamatea Intermediate on the mountain, capturing the eruption on video.
We were sitting looking at the Tamari vents, and then all of a sudden one of the kids said, look, and we turned round and there it was. It was just erupting in front of us.
Safest place is right here, people. Wow.
Luckily, suffering only jangled nerves, all the students safe. We were with the relieved principal when he got the good news.
Excellent news, Paul. I'm really thrilled. Have an enjoyable soak in the Takana hot falls, mate.
A one-in-a-lifetime experience for the Year 8 students.
A very exciting day. I have to say they not quite the day they planned. They're doing a study of volcanoes. They got a first-hand look at what happens when nature goes through unannounced.
The outing, the school's second trip to the volatile region in the fortnight.
We looked at all the dock warnings and advisories, and we do make sure we ring and check on the day for any heightened levels of risk. Nothing was showing up. It was supposed to be all okay, so we went ahead.
Also on the mountain, 20 students and 11 staff from Auckland's Gulf Harbour School, all reported to be safe and sound, in fact staying in the region to continue their trip. 50 trampers on the Tongariro Alpine Crossing also safe and making their way down the mountain. This footage a permanent record of an unforgettable lesson in nature's power.
The Tongariro crossing, Ruth, a very popular tourist attraction in the area. Tell us more about it.
Simon, the crossing has really only just reopened to the public after the first eruption closed it earlier this year. Police are now once again warning sightseers that they should be staying out of the area while they closely monitor it along with DOG. It's another hit for the region, which relies quite heavily on the tourism that is developed here at the Tongariro. It's another hit right as it enters peak season.
Ruth Wynne-Williams, thank you.
This One News Update is brought to you by the new ANZ. One News Update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
All right, updating our big story, the eruption at Mount Tongariro. Let's go back live to Daniel Faitaua. Daniel.
Well, I can tell you a Department of Conservation spokesperson has just told me the Tongariro crossing is now closed. But what's important to note is that there are 2 huts with people still inside them. Now, DOC wanted to emphasise that they are at no risk because they are more than 5 k's away from where the eruption took place. Now, of course, DOC tonight have confirmed that they will meet with GNS, where they will discuss the events tonight, also look at it tomorrow, and hopefully have a decision within the next 3 days.
Thanks for that, Daniel. Daniel Faitaua at...
This One News Update is brought to you by the new ANZ. One News Update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
Today's eruption is, of course, the second time Mount Tongariro has roared back into life this year. Will Hine looks back at recent activity in the Central Plateau.
It's just over 3 months since Tongariro coughed ash and boulders into the air, the eruption coming from the same Tamari craters which blew today, craters that had been dormant since 1897.
This localised area on the north flank of the volcano that has erupted this year over the last few months, these are just small explosions similar to 100 years ago.
But it seems the volcano is capable of bigger things.
Over hundreds of years or over thousands of years, it does erupt frequently, and it is capable of producing eruptions that are much larger and more intense than we've seen in the last few months.
Cone-shaped Ngarahui is connected to Tongariro and is technically considered a vent. It last blew in the mid-1970s.
Ngarahui hasn't erupted since '75, but before that it erupted virtually every year in European history and then parts of Māori history too.
Most recently, all eyes have been on Tongariro's southern neighbour, Mount Ruapehu. In the last fortnight, volcanologists have warned it could be readying itself for an eruption. It erupted spectacularly in 1995 and 96.
These are very active volcanoes. It's only if you look at our lifetime, some of them might be quiet for years or tens of years, and it seems like they've gone to sleep completely, but they've never completely. They're just dozing, really.
And scientists keeping a close eye to make sure we're not caught napping. Will Hine, One News.
This One News Update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
Look at that! Oh, there's meat on here!
Safest place is right here, people.
Wow.
all ash.
Oh, can you hear that?
Oh, that's coming past, eh?
Yep.
Oh, look at
Oh,
them.
look at that. Oh my goodness.
Poor people.
We've got some people on the track and they're running.
Yeah, you need to.
Yeah, you got them way up there too, the heck.
Turn and go back.
Updates on disruptions or potential disruptions from yesterday's eruption. First of all, we've got New Zealand's biggest cycle race this weekend, the Taupo Cycle Challenge. 8,500 people probably wondering, is it on, is it off? It is at this stage still on, very much on. The organisers say go ahead. What isn't on so much is the activity in the skies above us. I'm now joined by Peter Lechner from the Civil Aviation Authority. Peter, tell us what the latest situation is with our flights.
Yeah, good morning. Best people check with the airlines for the flights this morning. At this stage, there's probably still some ash around that central area affecting the likes of airspace over Taupo, Gisborne areas, but we expect that ash to dissipate completely by about the middle of the day.
All right, so everything should be back to normal this afternoon?
I would say so.
Yeah, it's a funny one because here it's such a beautiful day, absolute clear sky. We can, of course, see the steam still coming out of Tongariro, but there's no sign of any sort of ash cloud. What sort of dangers does it present at this stage?
Well, the ash cloud is of particular significance to aviation. It's a safety issue with engines and airframes. The density of that ash cloud is the significant thing. Of course, there's always a very low amount of ash in the atmosphere all the time from other volcanoes, but basically when you can see the ash, that's when it is a problem to aviation.
What did we learn from August? Did we learn something from August which meant that yesterday when this happened we were able to react in a slightly different way than maybe otherwise?
Well, not so much August, but more the Ruapehu eruptions right back in 95 and 96, and from that we learnt an awful lot and implemented a volcanic ash advisory system that's been in place ever since and served us very well.
And so as far as the situation now is, we've still got a few flights which grounded, should be clearing up for the afternoon. And is it then a case of monitoring? I mean, or are you pretty confident at that stage whatever is up there will have dissipated and will present no more threat?
Yeah, that's correct. Unless there's another eruption, we're fairly confident that the ash will dissipate by about lunchtime through the afternoon.
Tell me, Peter, with the different types of craft which we have flying around, obviously from the tiny little four-seaters, sort of single propellers, to the more commercial propeller flights up to the wee jets, what's most at risk? Is it the jets, or is it your older craft?
It depends largely on the nature of the eruption and where the ash is in the atmosphere. Obviously, the jets are flying very high, generally above 30,000 feet. If the ash reaches that level, then it's a problem for them. At lower levels, it's a problem for turboprops at around about 18 to 24,000 feet. And of course, if it's a low level or intense eruption, smaller aircraft flying below that should be keeping clear as well.
Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, we can, of course, still see a lot of activity in the sky above Tongariro here. I don't know if you can see it, but a huge amount of steam still pouring out of the Tamari crater here. That, of course, it presents no issue. This is just about the ash from yesterday.
That's right. Aviation is mainly interested in the ash, a little bit of interest in some of the gases, but much lesser extent. And while there's no further eruptions, aviation will be pretty clear.
How do you communicate with the various airlines? Do you send out a no-fly ban, or do you allow everyone to make their own decisions?
In New Zealand, we take the view as the regulatory authority that our job is to ensure that the best warning information possible is provided to the airlines, and that's done by the likes of GNS and Met Service, and that the airlines are able to use that information in the most expeditious way to operate their aircraft with least risk. So essentially it's a hands-off situation with great confidence in the ability of the airlines to make the right decision.
Great. Peter Lechner from the Civil Aviation Authority, thank you very much for joining us.